Hello, welcome again. This is episode 11 of Behind the Screen, specifically for Scion. I'm treating this as season 2 of my Behind the Screen series. Season 1 was on my own channel with Dungeons and Dragons. But this is season 2. This is Scion writing an introductory chronicle / kind of chronicle seed for use to introduce people to the game of Scion and to its world, to its setting, kind of as a way of, and generally the story path, the story guide system in general, as Onyx Path's in-house engine. Those of you who are listening with any kind of quality of audio equipment, you may be able to tell that my voice is horrendously shreked. I got over the cough I had last time, and then my partner brought a cold home, so I now have a cold. So that's great. So again, I will try to mute the mic if I have to cough or sneeze. I might have to take a break like halfway through, so in about an hour's time to refill my drink. Who knows? Depends how much I drink. But there we go. That's just the facts of life. I apologize. It makes my already kind of monotonous voice a bit nasally, but there's nothing I can do about that. So, standard disclaimers, really. I'm disabled, so I might see me experience muscle twitching or stuttering or slurring of speech. I can't do anything about that. I'm tired. It makes everything worse. And I struggle with multiple trains of thought, so I'll try to finish one train of thought before starting another one. So if you ask a question halfway through my train of thought, I'll try to acknowledge the question. My chat is over in this direction, that's why I'm looking here. I'll try to acknowledge the question, finish my train of thought, and then answer the question. So far, that's not been a problem, but as the Onyx Path Twitch channel grows, and if you're watching this on my YouTube channel, twitch.tv/the Onyx Path is the Twitch channel. It's in the video description. I might start having to kind of have a buffer of questions and then say like, this is my limit of questions. Also, standard disclaimer applies that I don't work for Onyx Path. I don't represent Onyx Path in any way. I'm a fan. They are just giving me the platform, and I'm very grateful to them for that. I apologize for the time zone thing, but I'm based in the UK, so this is a convenient mid-afternoon time for me and a stupidly early time for the States. So there we go. But it means that there is some kind of content going during European and UK time zone friendly times. I just need to update my notes a little bit, and kind of you'll see Nightbot and Silicon Path bots, as you can see in the chat displayed below my video. Drop in links occasionally. Nightbot is the social media stuff. Silicon Path is more of the like product line specific things and the Onyx Dice app stuff, which I recommend the Onyx Dice app. I've used it a few times, and you know it has the same drawbacks as usual electronic dice rollers, but it's pretty intuitive. You can use it pretty easily, and you don't actually have to pay any money for it. You can just buy custom dice if you want to support the the developers and stuff. But there we go. It's not an ad. Apart from the fact I'm talking about it, like, no one's asked me to promote it. It's just something I happen to enjoy using. Especially the Vampire Chronicles that I run. Also of note is that if you are ever kind of want to get up to speed on Onyx Path news, the Monday meeting notes, which that link is for the current weeks, are the way to do it. There's no current Kickstarters running at the minute, but that Monday meeting note explains how Onyx Path handle going from Kickstarter to final release of a document in terms of like the stages of that. So Kickstarter, back a kit, back a PDF, shipping, books in brick and mortar stores, that kind of thing. Also pretty hype is that the Hunter the Vigil second edition's coming out. I almost said Reckoning, but Chronicles of Darkness, not WOD. So that's pretty great. Hopefully there'll be an updated Slashers source book. Slashers is one of my favorite source books of all time. But there we go. And then there's just other general news roundups. And also if you scroll all the way down to the bottom, there is a weekly update about project progression for all of the books going on right now. So if you're kind of ever curious about what your anticipated product, what stage that's in the process, you can scroll down to the bottom of the page and you can find out. I keep checking this every week for Scion, because that's relevant to this. So Demigod's still in development, Dragons still at manuscript approval, the LARP rules still post-approval development, where they have been joined by the Player's Guide to the Contagion Chronicles, so get hyped for that. Titanomachy book is also still in post-approval development. You know, I really could just do a Control F here. But most excitingly, I mean, it's been there for a few weeks, for a while now, but most excitingly, the Scion Companion is still in post-editing development. So that's pretty hype. After that, it'll go to indexing. And just checking the art stuff. Mythical Denizens is headed to proofing from being in art layout, so that's pretty hype. And after that, it's at press. But it's not there yet. So patience. I must be patient still. This game is good. Anyway, so what is the purpose of the show for people who may not have been here before? Behind the screen, as you can see here, kind of here-ish, Gem Tips content creation stream. I'm a fan. I don't work for Onyx Path. I'm not one of their freelancers. I'm not working on any projects for them. I am merely here to create, as I say, an introductory chronicle or a chronicle seed designed to introduce players to the story path system and to the game of Scion, with your help in chat. Now, I have some stuff that I'll be taking help from chat with, hopefully later. But it's also just a general kind of GM tips thing. Feel free to ask about any games feel free to ask about any games you're curious about. I can't guarantee I'll answer, but if I don't know anything, I will just say I don't know. I won't make anything up. General GM tips stuff, feel free to ask about. I can answer about most GM topics. Like some Onyx Path games I'll be able to answer questions about, just as someone who's played them or read the rulebook through. Others I'll have no idea, so, you know. You got about, I want to say, 3 and 4 odds of me not knowing about any particular game. I know about the big ones, and that's really it. And Promethean and Changeling, but there we go. But kind of when it comes to chronicle writing or table behavior or kind of improv stuff, feel free to ask about any and all of that. Even if I'm talking about something else at the time, as I said, I will acknowledge the question, and then I'll move on to finish my train of thought and then go back to your question. And that's all of that. So that's what the show is. It does go up on YouTube a week after it airs here, purely because if you're a subscriber to the channel, you get a week's exclusivity on the Videos on Demand service. If you have an Amazon Prime subscription, you can link it to your Twitch account to get a free sub every month through the Twitch Prime program. You also get loot and occasionally free games and stuff, so that's all pretty cool. Highly recommend doing it if you haven't. And for those of you who kind of have already done that but still aren't sure about what Twitch Prime is, what a Twitch Prime sub is, it's identical to a tier 1 sub in terms of the benefits that you get and the benefits that Onyx Path get. You get cool emotes and, as I say, the week exclusivity to the channel's kind of video archive. You can't currently see it because I guess I wasn't subbed at that point because my own free Twitch Prime sub dropped. But you also get a cool sub badge for the stream, and that will progress as you keep the sub going. Okay, so that's all of that. That's pretty good. So that's what the show is. That's sub stuff. So you can see it really on screen right now in the outline, but as this is an introductory game, it's not going to be terribly long, it's not going to be terribly complex. It's kind of taking the core aspects of the game, not really simplifying them, but laying them out in an easy to understand manner, let's say. So there's my general kind of philosophy, because I run a lot of introductory games, is don't have more than 3 or 4 scenes, purely because any more than that, and you kind of, if this is designed as like a one and done thing, any more than 3 or 4 scenes, and you're going to be introducing stuff that players might feel is unresolved, or that you might feel is unresolved. I personally find myself way more critical of my narrative than my players. but that's just, how it goes. So be wary of introducing elements that seem like they have a future payoff, but don't. This happened to me once, and I accidentally ended up running a second session for a one-shot, so there we go. So we kind of usually start with a low-stakes scene to introduce the basics of the mechanics, and then a couple of scenes where the players are free to explore, and then just an action-driven climax to give them a sense of accomplishment at the end of the stream. So to kind of slot to where we're in right now, and with what you can see on the screen, because I can't currently see it. So we have completed the introductory scenes. So that's the low stakes scene. That's where game mechanics are explored, like the basic game mechanics are explored. The essentials of combat are explored, but there's no real sense of there's no real failure possible here. The players will, in theory, coast on through, especially because the combat, so to speak, at the festival, scene 1B down here, the antagonists aren't trying to hurt the player characters. They're trying to cause chaos. They're trying to cause property damage, but they're not trying to hurt or kill anyone. That could happen. Don't get me wrong. That could happen. And when this comes to being typed up properly, I'll probably include a note about don't kill the characters, even when they're taken out. But so that's what that is. And then we're currently on these scenes here. So it says 1 scene for the band to meet, and then 1 to 2 scenes for them to investigate. I don't currently know if I'm going to stick to that structure. This was a rough kind of sample outline, and the more I've thought about it, the more I'm kind of just inclined to have either fate do its thing, or say that we start with the interrogation scene and move into the hunt scene. The interrogation scene is where they're all pulled together anyway, just through the narrative. So I might scrap the band meet scene, because I'm also technically this would fulfill the festival scene. So I'll keep that. Oh, hang on 1 sec. Okay, stupid code. So I'll keep that. We'll call that the festival scene. We'll call that the festival scene. With the combat introducing the knacks and stuff, and being the inciting incident. Band investigate, the interrogation and the hunt, and then the finale, the action adventure scene stuff, big smackdown at the end of it, which could, take a variable length of time. And then it says epilogue visitations. I'm probably going to try to highlight potential instances where a visitation could happen throughout the 4 or 5 scenes, because the festival can be run, I believe I've said, it can be enjoyed regardless by removing the action subscene at the end. So it could happen after all of the many path scenes. Sorry. But obviously each scion, being the child chosen, what have you, of a god, will have a different visitation depending on the incarnation of their parent or creator or demiurge or whatever you want to call it. It's a good word, demiurge. And so each one will have different ways of triggering that. So, for example, my Liam McMurn, being the son of the Tuatha De Danann, god of death, will probably be someone who is severely injured / dies, which you could quite easily have as collateral damage during the festival scene, for example. So that's kind of what that is. We're at this step of the band investigating, introducing procedural scenes and momentum stuff. And also of note is that any kind of design notes, anything that I think here might be interesting for story guide purposes or for just people to read if they're interested in the kind of the theory of writing adventures, chronicles, what have you, but don't have the... this is episode 11, so subtracting the 2 hours I wax lyrical on just general GM tips for episode 1. It's 18 hours of content. They're just kind of like small sidebars like this one, just a couple of sentences. I'll probably use footnotes, maybe. I haven't really decided that yet. To link the relevant design note, and part in the text, but that'll be as an appendix. And these scenes are in note form also is an important thing to consider. I'll be tidying them up and doing a bit more elaboration on their purpose and setting and stuff as we go on. But so far we've done introductory scenes. We've got an introduction scene complete with kind of like an action-y sub-scene using bold to link to stat blocks, which are on this, which will be included obviously in an appendix. Also of note for people who are curious, my intention is to have everything you need to run this come from the Origin book, so you don't need to buy both books straight off the bat, because that can be expensive. So everything is using stuff found in Origin except for the Scion of Legbara, who I've just included comes from Scion Hero, but all of the flares come from the Origin book, and also the kind of the design note associated with it will explain about that. So if you do kind of want, if you're looking at any of this and you do want me to include a design note addressing a certain thing, please do feel free to say in chat. I'm 100% open to that kind of input. And I realised that was a very rushed kind of 15-minute overview of everything that's happened so far and standard disclaimers, but finally ready to start. So I'm going to have a mouthful of my cold tea. I guess it's technically... Anyway, I'm going to have a mouthful of my drink, and then we're going to get started. So if you have any questions, now is a good time to get them in before I get started in my spiel, into my flow, and then possibly get distracted. Also, I guess try to just behave in chat. I am a mod. I can react appropriately, but we are currently unsupervised, so go crazy. But behave. The parent will be here at some point. Okay, so right. So going really quickly back up to the outline. As I have said, we are on the investigation stage of this chronicle. Introducing procedural scenes and momentum stuff. It isn't specifically going to be momentum stuff, it's just constellations in general. But in order to kind of get the clues needed for the players to follow the breadcrumbs to the right place, we need to know where they're going. So kind of ideally need to know what the finale is going to be. Now, the finale, as I said, is going to be an action a formal action adventure scene. Sorry, so this is what I've been thinking about, because I do think about these projects on the off week between streams. When I technically should be typing this up properly and polishing it, so I have as little as necessary to do at the end stage, but I have all other jobs to juggle and I just don't get time to do that. But there we go. So we need to know what the finale is. So Scion is a game of urban fantasy, which by its nature is really quite pulpy. Oh, also, I guess my sub badges might be showing in chat for you, but not for me because I didn't refresh my chat. Never mind. So because it is pretty pulpy, I thought kind of what's the most pulp thing we can have, and that ties into a gang making a quasi-mythical drug. And so naturally I went straight to Freight Yard, which gives you loads of warehouses and a lack of collateral damage in terms of population, and kind of lots of cool, interesting places that you can go and find weird stuff, really. But freight yard is a really vague thing. So to start with, we need to decide two things. And I'm saying we because I'm doing this with your help. And the final document will be pay what you want and be credited to the help of the Twitch community. And I'm using these kind of recordings as a way of properly crediting where the ideas come from. So two things we need to decide. It doesn't really matter which order, but we need to decide if it's a new or an old kind of freight yard area. So by that I mean, is it run down? Is it mostly automated? Because that will also determine where it is in the city and determine clues given to lead the players, hopefully lead the players there. And the second point to decide, so new versus old question mark. The second point to decide is the specific kind of freight. So is it a rail freight yard? So that's not how you spell freight. Railroad terminus for American English, railway terminus for British English. Those are train carriages, warehouses, cranes, that kind of thing. Or river freight. Or a mix of both. So river freight would be cargo barges, or large boats, that kind of thing. Or, as I say, a mix of both, which is what we have a lot of here in the UK, in like former centres of industrial activity, where you get a couple of canals meeting, and then they have like a sidings nearby where the cargo would have been unloaded and taken to its next destination. I'll just put water freight actually, because canals are also a thing. Those of you who might not be aware of the distinction and who might care, canals are man-made waterways, rivers are natural ones. Canals, certainly in the UK, have a fixed depth, so maybe if we go for a water freight kind of angle or a mix of both angles, that could play into it as a field hazard. I don't know much about American canals, and this is going to be set in America, so I'd have, but in a very much like a silver screen interpretation of America, I would have to do some research into that, but there we go. So those are the first two things we need to decide. We need to decide the age of the freight yard and the kind of the type of freight yard it is. Because if it's a new freight yard, it could be near the. If it's like a new water freight yard, it could be near the university. Have like hydroelectric stuff plugged into it. Probably would be automated. But if it's an old one, still near the university, it might have some kind of hydroelectric stuff kind of bodged together into it, so that could be a like you can break it to do something kind of situation. I myself have no opinion regarding the age of the freight yard, but I'm leaning towards water freight or mix of both personally, because that's just less done really. It's just, let's say, because of this cold, I've got like if you allow the nerd humor, like a level 2 complication for this entire stream. And anyone who's been here before knows that they're not terribly high quality anyway. I feel like rail freight gets a lot of screen time in Hollywood and in like pulp fiction novels and stuff, and radio plays and dramas and plays and whatnot. So I wanted to be similar but slightly different, so hence the water freight idea, or the mix of both. And then just obviously the new versus old thing. The only thing really to consider with new versus old, and the whole purpose of the stream being content creation, is it's my thought process, and hopefully you'll be able to not learn, because that makes me sound really arrogant, but hopefully it will help inspire you or give you kind of equip you with the skills to look at things from a different angle, perhaps, that you would not normally necessarily do. And conversely, your input in chat will help me do that anyway. So If it is new, however, we would then have to consider security systems and how the gang have got around those. But that could be a problem for a future stream, where I look back on this and think Pastor Ryan was a scumbag and should have done the work himself. So, with that wandering, babbling inanity out of the way, does anyone in chat have any particularly strong feelings? You don't have to. I'm perfectly happy to talk to myself for 2 hours. I do anyway, quite a lot. So, lurking is fine. As I say, if it's just helping you, that's really what this is for. You don't need to stroke my ego by replying. It's just like a community outreach thing. It's also a necessarily distorted content creation process. Like, it doesn't normally take me 20 hours to make things like this, but talking things through so that my thought process is clear, or as clear as it can ever be, and answering questions and things like that obviously pads out the process. So there we go. Anyway, so I'm kind of leaning towards a new freight yard, but well, not terribly new, like not state of the art, to enunciate clearly, but kind of maybe 5 to 10 years old. So there's room for some dilapidation, but everything is in mostly working order. There is some automated security. There's some manual security. There are some automated like cranes and things tied into the hydroelectric works. I'm going to go with that. So let's say it will be a mixed freight. I'm on normal text. Okay. Again, cannot overestimate the importance of formatting properly. It just saves so much time in the long run. Let's just quickly go back up to Ash. Was it a library? Who was that? Isabel was at a university. No, Isabel was at Ashworth Renewables. Astro Science sponsored building. So it could be linked to that. Because it's usually good to have a link to the player characters somehow to kind of give them that connection to the events going on around them, rather than just feeling like they're being swept along in the wake of whatever you're trying to tell. And obviously Scion has the whole fate thing built in with fate binding and the threads of narrative causality being a almost perceivable force in the world with capital W. But that relying on that too much, especially considering that consolation exists with helping you to find something important or meeting someone or overhearing something, relying on that too much as the prime kind of driver of the game, I think is to the detriment of the game. But it's a possibility, and Martino was at the Redfield Center for Renewable Sciences, a competing company, but I didn't actually name the university. So, or the university district, or the rival university. So we've got a bit of flexibility here. I don't think that this freight yard is going to be connected to the university in any way. I think it is an independent industrial site, perhaps part of an industrial park, or like a freight park or whatever, which would make more sense, admittedly. Probably privately owned. And then kind of, because it is privately owned, you can get away with having some weird incongruities, like two different competing companies providing hydroelectric power and stuff like that, if we decide that is the way forwards. Okay, so let us say that this is, and again, this is all just note stuff. Let's say yep, I know I spelt wrong. Oh God, I can't speak. Got a cold. Stupid cold. Morrison Freight Yard, about 5. I don't think. Nope, that does not support the correct dash. So ignore the hyphen. It's supposed to be an end dash. 5 to 10 years old. starting to show its age. A terminus of, let's say, 4 freight line. 4, that seems to be 2 freight lines. 4 freight rail lines. And 1 canal. / river. Haven't really decided yet. River would be deeper and potentially faster, probably. With a hydroelectric capability. Let's say with some near obsolete hydroelectric equipment. That's not how you spell that word. Yep. This is the problem when I get a cold, is I look at a word and I know it's wrong, but I just can't for the life of me think why it's wrong. Hydro. I know why that is wrong, however. Electric equipment powering a range of cranes, platforms, and buildings. So when we get onto actually working out the specifics of this scene in God knows, like 3 months' time, that's an exaggeration, but in a while, definitely not, almost certainly not this stream, we can maybe look at the effects of taking out the hydroelectric stuff, or how you can weaponize it, or things like that, if the players decide to do that, obviously. Power range of cranes, platforms, and buildings. There are a few regular guard patrols and a variety of industrial, really. This is the problem when people watch me type. Also, I've said it before, I'll say it again, I can't actually see my keyboard because my microphone is in the middle of my field of view, right in front of my keyboard, and it's really annoying. A variety of industrial warehouses and workshops. So kind of independent, kind of artisan stuff, really. What else would be at a mixed freight kind of area? Because this is all stuff that can give clues to the players. So we've got freight terminus. We've got the buildings associated with freight. Oh, we need offices, obviously. A few regular guard patrols, a variety of industrial warehouses and workshops, as well as a small office building. There we go. Oops. Offices, warehouses, workshops. Maybe like a garage for repairing, or garage. Garage is the wrong word. Similar to a garage, but for repairing kind of the industrial equipment. Technicians. There we go. Although that can kind of be just assumed by the fact that it's a freight yard, I guess. There'd be a maintenance area. So maybe not. Let's kind of let's go a bit granular then. So maintenance. I'm going to have to spell maintenance. That's not even close. I missed out like half the letters there because I closed my eyes and hit keys at random. Maintenance provided by... I feel like Grease Monkey Inc. is way too on the nose. I don't particularly want it to be divinely provided maintenance. Let's go with Schuster and Sons. security provided by, let's just go with Cerberus Systems, but they've just picked the name. They're not actually related to Cerberus or Hades in any way. And personnel. Please, thank you. So kind of any physical evidence the players' characters might find could link to these two things, perhaps. What else? What else would there be? Obviously, you've got the warehouses and the workshops and things that could have clues. Oh, right. Hydroelectric equipment. Hydroelectric equipment. I am also trying to monitor Streamlabs OBS's performance. So it hasn't happened in a while, thankfully, but occasionally it will just stop broadcasting. So I'll be trying to keep on track of that. And if it does go down, I do apologize. I will try to get the stream back up as soon as I can, usually by just completely closing my broadcasting software and reopening it. But again, if it goes down, I do apologize. And I will just kind of ask for your forbearance in that instance. Anyway, back to misspelling words in front of people. Hydroelectric equipment provided by, let's say, Ashworth. Let's say provided by both Ashworth and, let's not use the Redfield center. Let's go with a different one. Let's go with let's go with some alliteration. I feel like renewables is kind of, we've used that twice so far, with Ashworth and with the Redfield Center for renewable sciences. So let's just go away from renewables. Let's go with green. Grant Green Enterprises. There we go. Bit of alliteration, kind of very pulpy, sort of pulpy having alliteration. Again, for those of you who weren't here, Ashworth is my kind of go-to umbrella style corporation. Umbrella as in both the Capcom thing and in the small U, with it doing a bit of everything. Just to tie all my games together and have a kind of consistency to world building in a way. Not always doing shady stuff, but sometimes. Just enough times for the players to be suspicious, but not outright accusatory. Hydroelectric equipment provided by both Ashworth Renewables and Grant Green Enterprises. GGE equipment is in better repair. What else? Obviously, there'll be actually boats there and like rail cars and things like that, wagons or whatever, carriages, whichever you prefer. I think that's okay. So now we need to situate it. So it is let's say about 5 to 10 years old. So it's not top of the line. It's been there a while, so it probably won't be next to any important places, especially considering there's a water system linking to it. So that kind of does limit it, as do pre-existing rail lines, although rail lines you can obviously lay. Canals can be dug, but they take a lot longer. So going entirely on the fact that it is about 5 to 10 years old, which would put it in 2012, so just kind of after the recession started getting better for most countries. And the fact that it does have hydroelectric capabilities, that suggests an area of redevelopment. So probably worth So it's like it's not the suburbs, but it's one step closer to the city centre than the suburbs. Starting to show its age. Oh, no, please don't highlight anything. Let's say situated 15 minutes drive from the city centre. In an area of stalled redevelopment. So kind of this could lean slightly into Ash's thing about looking out for people who can't look out for themselves, looking out for the disadvantaged, that kind of situation. It also does give you kind of a feel of, or I think it does anyway, gives you kind of feel for the area. Like I live in a place of stored redevelopment myself, or near to a place of stored redevelopment, so it's kind of everything looks hopeful and optimistic, which I know appreciate redundancies to say the same say the same thing twice, but that kind of money has obviously been put into the area to improve it, and the money ran out before the improvements finished, and so you get this kind of forlorn hopefulness about over an entire area, and people kind of have pride in what there is, but know that there should be so much more, and then kind of feel a bit abandoned by the powers that be. So that kind of feel. I'm gonna actually write that down so I don't forget. Also, I liked that turn of phrase. Areas of redevelopment. I appreciate the spelling error. Typically have a feeling of forlorn hopefulness. Inhabitants apparently. Proud of what they have, but no. The powers that be, we're going to give them more before the money ran out. Get rid of that superfluous L and the superfluous E. Redevelopment, making words here, and replace that hour with an out. I think that's enough to prompt that memory, or to kind of give me that prompt again. Okay, so anyone have any questions so far, or anything they want to kind of add to this general field, to use the game term, but setting, I guess, because it'll have loads of different fields within it, before we go back to the two previous scenes? I'm just going to check a couple of things while I'm thinking about what to do next. Because I think I'm happy with where I'm at so far. So I'm happy. Everyone in the chat seems to be happy. So let's see. So let's go back to the interrogation scene. Start kind of building that up. So, story guide eyes only. This scene and the one following, the hunt, can happen in any order but are intended to follow the gang attack. Brackets. The police have put out a call for witnesses to the gang attack. Brackets. To come forwards. I guess that grammatically would be to come forward. Any PC who does come forward will find themselves at the wrong end of an argument. This scene can lead into the hunt. So, how did I approach this? Obviously, everyone has a different way of writing chronicles and scene outlines and things. So if you happen to get the recent New Year New Game sale, for example, on Drive-Thru RPG for Scion, it came with the quick start, a light extinguished. That starts with a procedural scene, and it has kind of just launches you straight into it, really. So that's how that treats it. But then other games like Pugmire have like a rough scene outline. I think Pugmire did anyway. Other games have a scene outline and then go into like a scene breakdown and then actually go into the scene with all the narrative stuff. Because I favor kind of generic, almost kind of vague story beat creation, so I can slot things in wherever. I'm probably going to do like I did up here with the festival, with the story guide bit explaining the scene, bit of narrative fluff to either be paraphrased, to be read, or to use to determine a description of the scene for the players, and then more of a breakdown of like a granular breakdown of the scene and the fields and whatnot. So the police station, I haven't actually named the city, so we'll just go with XXX Central for now. Sorry, XXXXX Central. Is hey Plastic Age Place, how are you? Chat, you have to behave now. Not that you were misbehaving before, but you have to behave now. There's a shining hub of steel, glass, and bureaucracy. Fracking exhausted? Man, I know that feel. Got over the cough from last stream, and like 2 days later, my partner came home with a cold. Well, a week later, but there we go. And then, of course, took a while for the cold to germinate, and then boom, on Friday I was ill. Still got the cold. Shining hub of steel, glass, and bureaucracy. The police officers within are bored, inattentive, and counting down the minutes to shift end. The time specified for witnesses to come forth has been and gone, and a sizable crowd still waits to be seen. So, first thoughts in this kind of setup is that it might be worth having a series of rumors and things that the players can overhear, one of which is relevant, the others of which are not. So, let's say that the crowd have taken to whispered conversations to pass the time. And the PCs may overhear / take part in several things they may hear include. Let's just use tab, although it's lazy to use tab for an indent. It messes with formatting horrendously, so I would advise you don't do it personally, but it's late. I'm going to take everything anyway from this program to another one. Let's have something completely unrelated. Let's have that. Let's say First and Grand metro stations have recently been site of a spate of pickpocketing. Woo! Oh, while I'm thinking about it, Plastic Age Plays, I don't think the stream title was updated for Seattle by Streetlight. When I started before I started streaming, the the last video pop up was set to Vampire the Masquerade, but it was actually the Seattle by Streetlight overlay stuff. First ground metro station is recently the site of suspected pickpocketing. Hit tab. Again, you probably shouldn't. Anderson's vets on 7th has had an influx of strays with electrical burns. And then let's have in brackets, if heads up when you change the stream name, if I check command does not roll through to the VOD, I need to make sure I roll that if you're out across the board, folks. Oh, cool. So really only, I guess, Ian can do that for the VOD. Maybe. Follow this up. However they choose to do so. However they choose to do so, the veterinary practice. I knew that was wrong. I knew it. Gosh darn it. I always had too many letters. But it's not a word I have to spell that often, so it's kind of one of those things. I always spell it incorrectly, but I know it's wrong every time I do it. But it just never sticks. Anyway, the veterinary practice will tell them the animals were all rescued from oh, you can do it too. Cool. So much way to get ahead time and fix it, but also keep schedule preferably before folks are live. Yeah, obviously it's fine for me because it's just early for everyone for me. But yeah, maybe. And I'm not expecting everyone to remember to do it like the Monday evening beforehand, because it's just awkward for everyone involved. I'll tell them the animals were all rescued from the failed Acorn Grove redevelopment. So close. There we go. That's the name for the area that the freight yard is in. Oops. And then let's have something slightly more obviously linked. I mean, obviously, if they choose to investigate that kind of aspect of things. But let's have a conversation about Chestnut Grove has been experiencing brownouts. You know what? I don't think we need the brackets because it is, you know, its own thing. If the PCs investigate this, they can find out that Chestnut Grove and Acorn Grove... Acorn, the new Pokemon coming soon. Acorn Grove share a power grid. And that... depending on how they investigate and how successful they are, they might also find out that several buildings, again, in Acorn Grove are drawing more power than they ought. But kind of finding that information out is probably going to be extremely difficult, so I don't mind giving them that kind of bonus to be, this is somewhere quite important that you should investigate. Acorn Grove will be an industrial redevelopment area. God damn it. Industrial again. There we go. If PCs investigate this, they can find out that Chestnut Grove and Acorn Grove share a power grid. Depending on how they investigate and how successful they are, they might also find out that several buildings in Acorn Grove are drawing more power than they should. Again, I can't stress enough how flexible I plan things to be. So I'm not going to say the PCs can investigate through this method or this method or this method, and this is what they can find out through these methods, because the players will just think of something not covered by these notes, by this content. I'd much rather say they could find this out and then leave it up to the story guide, to decide how they find it out, or what amount of information they find out based on the information presented here. But I might also include, when I come to typing this up, kind of a suggested examples of what they could do to find out certain pieces of information. Whilst waiting, PCs may also see the news via a nearby muted television or on the daily newspaper. News items include, well, obviously, gang attacks around the city. Gang attacks around the city. Whoops. I don't know why I'm using double marks. That's not... Anyway. British English uses the single. Gang attacks around the city. Another bizarre murder along the river. So I guess it's a river we're using. If the PCs investigate, however they choose to investigate, presumably just asking people, they can find out that the trail goes cold at a commercial marina 5 minutes walk from the murder site. Where a series of grand theft boat, I guess a number of boats have been stolen from. A number of rowing boats have been stolen. Have been stolen. I don't know why I put the speech mark there. Let's just edit these while I'm thinking about it, because it's annoying me. Again, depending on how they investigate and how successful they are, they might also find out that the last boat to be stolen had a GPS tracker attached to it, which was broken shortly after the theft, but indicated the thief was moving towards the city. And then kind of SGCIs only, although this is all SGCIs only. It is up to the SG's discretion if the fact that the river leads to, what do we call it? Morrison Freight Yard. Is pointed out. And let's have a third thing here, and then probably have like one thing related that the police officer will, who interviews them, will drop kind of accidentally. Oh, oops. There we go. So let's have something tangentially related. Oh, I know. Ashford. Ashford Renewables pledges to upgrade its existing hydroelectric equipment spread throughout the city. There we go. So it's sort of related, but without being a clue in any way, shape, or form. So that's that. After the PCs have had a chance to discover any or all of these things, they are invited, we'll say individually, to an interview room. Officer in charge of the interviews. Let's have Stein. Starts at, right, this is where my lack of familiarity, because I never use social maneuvering, becomes relevant. Where'd it go? There we go. Attitude. I guess 1. General friendliness, minor irritation. Yeah, let's say just at attitude 1 maybe. Or 0, I guess. Neutral. Hang on, how's attitude conveyed in Light Extinguished? Positive, negative number. Let's have it as -1. Minor irritation. She's bored. She's been there all day. She has better things to be doing. So her attitude starts at an attitude of -1 for each character. So then you can introduce the social stuff for the scene, I guess, for groups who may want to use it. Like I say, I generally don't, but that's mostly because certainly in other games that have like the doors and things for Chronicles of Darkness, I think it just slows down the game. In this one, it's basically what I would be doing anyway. It's just formalized, so adding enhancements and complications and things to rolls. So that's always something to consider, is how you personally feel about social mechanics in games, whether you'd rather just have, like a single dice roll or a series of dice rolls treated as a extended action, I think is the wrong word. I can't think of the word. Needing multiple successes anyway. Complex action. There we go. To kind of give them granular information, or to have just like just have the conversation role played in its entirety, or use the formalized social maneuvering systems and things that the game presents as is. It's usually something advantageous to figure out beforehand, so that you don't start using it and then realize it's not for you, and then kind of change halfway through. Particularly if it's a one shot. If it's like a longer form thing, and you realize it's not for you after a couple of uses, then there's really no harm done, because you'll still use your preferred system for the vast majority of the the game. Something to be aware of, though. Always check how a game handles social maneuvering, combat, and whatnot. However, so the officer in charge of the interviews, Roxanne Stein, start at an attitude of -1 for each character. She will ask the following questions. Where were you when the incident happened? I'm going to try and keep these vague so that they apply to the the connecting threads of the introductory scenes, plural, if those are used, and also so they apply to the festival scene if that is used with the gang attack instead. Where were you when the incident happened? What did you see? What did you do? Can you remember anything odd? Nope. Question mark. Not, greater than operator. Where were you? What did you see? What did you do? Can you remember anything odd? Do you require any support? And then, based on the PC's answers, the SG is encouraged to devise follow-up questions to convey her aptitude there we go, for the job. I was like, aptitude definitely the wrong word. I got there. Real talk though, why is no one ever whelmed? Sorry about that. Stupid cold. I guess the cold and flu medicine wore off. Okay. So. It is up to the story guide when the following clues are revealed. In response to the Can you remember anything odd? Question. Officer Stein will mumble. What will she mumble? We need something related to that. So to the freight yard, or to something linked to the freight yard, obviously. Let's have one of the gang members use a random piece of equipment they found in a workshop in the freight yard, but something that's kind of uncommon enough to draw attention, but kind of specialist enough that there'd be multiple examples of it throughout the city. I'm gonna go to my other window so you can't see anything that you probably shouldn't see. So a quick bit of research. That's not really what I wanted. Ooh. How big are these things? Ooh, that looks nasty. Let's go with that. Maybe an ads for breaking ground? Probably not, thinking about it. No, I think we're going to go with a timber carrier. Timber dragging tongs, there we go. So Officer Stein will mumble. Another one who didn't see the timber. Another one who didn't see the timber carrying tongs. So that would be for moving sleepers and things around. Also for obviously if any of the freight is timber. But I mean they just look mean. Anyway, so the Officer Stein will mumble that. I should probably. There we go. Mumble that. Hopefully that would lead them to a timber yard or the freight yard, anywhere there's sources of timber. Another officer will stick their head into the interview room and say, what will they say? We need something, again, tangentially related to the freight yard. That they would not conveniently, realistically say to an interviewing officer, not to like the detective. Mrs. Rothman rang and said she forgot to mention something earlier. What did Mrs. Rothman forget to mention, people? Tied to the freight yard. Probably seeing something or hearing something. Or maybe one of the gang members did something or was wearing something that could feasibly only have picked up at that freight yard. Or somewhere related to that freight yard, obviously. Let's say that one of the gang members who attacked the grill next to her was wearing an Ashworth. Let's go with the other one. Let's not use Ashworth as the scapegoat for everything. Grant Green Enterprises patch on their jacket. Oh, whoops. Earlier. Officer Stein. Thanks to the officer. And they leave. Let's have a third thing, and then we'll go and kind of tabulate what the PCs could learn from this information. I'm going to go and refill my drink bottle, so I'll be back in a few minutes, and I would take that time, obviously, to think about the third thing that they could potentially find over here, whatever. If you could also be doing the same, that'd be appreciated. But again, feel free to lurk. Again, this is just a stream of consciousness show, hopefully to just highlight different ways of doing things and to provide some inspiration when you may be stuck. Sorry about that, but obviously it's important to stay hydrated when ill. Also, I see chat has not burned the chat room down, so that's nice. Okay, so timber carrying tongs, Grand Green Enterprises. Maybe it's something that they can see on her notepad. That is a breadcrumb. Because I think it kind of hydration is in point of fact key. It is hydration generally is key, but obviously it's important to have more hydration when ill. This is the biggest bottle I've got. I mean, I have my huge metal stein, obviously, but it's not what I fancy drinking from right now. But you are correct. Hydration is key. There are many, many bots on Twitch that remind you regularly to hydrate. Yeah, the more I'm kind of talking this through, the more I'm thinking that the information they find in this scene leads to scene 3, and that scene 3 doesn't really make sense to occur beforehand. So at least I don't have to create an inciting incident to lead into scene 3. Okay, anyway, so something that they can see which could lead them to the freight yard, preferably at a remove, at a step or two, not directly linked. There we go. So don't necessarily want. Yes. So, Officer Stein checks something written earlier in. I can't type. Please just put me out of my misery. Check something written earlier in the day. Turns which moves her notebook slightly and reveals a business card in an evidence wallet. Business card is for, let's say, a random business that would conceivably have offices all over the city. Industrial and Commercial Holdings Company. So let's go with Smythe's Industrial and Commercial Holdings. There we go. I mean, you all have the easy part. I'm the one that has to tie all this together. A dark smudged fingerprint can be seen. There we go. So that's kind of 3 direct clues that hopefully they'll pick up on, although players being players, you never know. This is as overt as you probably want to be getting with clues before beating them over the head with them. Also, you can probably tell I don't do much investigative stuff because my players don't. That's not the kind of game they want. So, or that comes naturally to them, I should say. So we have a scene in a police station. I feel like we should have a coda to this scene, something to wrap it all up, tie it all together. So, let's say after the PCs have all been interviewed, Officer Stein calls an end to the interviews for the day and sends everyone home. Now, ideally, at this point, the players will have kind of cottoned on to the fact that they should be investigating this together. However, I feel like this is where we commit more to the more obvious manifestations of the divine, going back to the themes of mood being a sudden awareness, changing the status quo, and revelations. So I think this is where a scion appears and asks them to investigate. But I don't know if that is too overt or not. What does everyone think? Because the problem with any the problem with any first kind of session or game or storyline, whatever you want to call it, is coming up with a feasible reason for a group of people who don't necessarily know each other to do something together. And obviously, in this instance, they don't know they're divine. They've already been interviewed by the police, so why would they not just let the police do their job? Why would they go ahead and investigate themselves? Now, some groups would be fine with just investigating. They'll take the approach that something's happened, they want to get to the bottom of it themselves. And that's kind of, I think, usually the general expectation and understanding a lot of role-playing groups go with, is that the story is going to happen and they're going to have to work together to solve it. But obviously, some people who aren't, as this is intended as an introductory thing, people who haven't role-played before might not grasp that, and that's perfectly fine. It's not something that kind of, why would a party of strangers work together to find something out? Why would they investigate when the police are obviously investigating also? I just don't know if a scion appearing and asking them to investigate is too overt and to use a term I don't like, railroady. I just don't know. The other option is to come up with a reason for each of these 6 characters to do it individually and hope that they realise that and just have them bump into each other on the way. Or have them discuss, maybe after the interviews have been ended, for under whatever pretext, that they're gonna investigate and ask for help. It could work as well. I just don't know which one's better. Because player agency to me is extremely important, and I don't want the players to, whoever ends up playing this, I don't want them to feel like they don't have any agency or any choice in the matter. Obviously, it's designed. The whole point of the game is for everyone to have fun, and if you don't have choice, if you don't feel like you have a choice, then the aspect of the fun goes. For me, anyway. And that ethos is through everything I do. So kind of this initial stumbling block is always a problem for me. Afterwards, it's fine because they have that pre-existing relationship. They know they can count on each other, and they have like shared contacts who might be able to help, who might be able to ask them to help and whatnot. And they're like, oh, hey, I know this person who can do this. They might be able to help in this situation. It's just the initial point of why would they all work together? Without them being vigilantes. Tabletop archives come in a little late, but is it possible to work in a reason they believe the police can't investigate or succeed and the players have a personal stake to get it figured out? That's what I was thinking. Especially, but again, I have a cold, so my thought processes aren't as flexible and as they usually are. So I keep just coming back to a scion tells them something supernatural is going on, but they themselves can't investigate, and the police aren't equipped to deal with it. But then why would the player characters investigate if most of them don't know their signs at this point? But it is a good point, Tabletop Archives. I do appreciate it. That's why I've been trying to work in... so Ashford Renewables here, one of the characters works for, like a part-time basis situation. They also work in solar stuff, so knowing about the hydroelectric kind of does have that tie-in. One of the other characters, Ash, is all about helping people from in like lower economically disadvantaged areas and helping them out. So that kind of ties in with that, but also cyber criminal. Isabel Kingsley, the Ashworth contact, doctor, violinist, and psychiatrist, counselor, what have you. They're less easy to get in. I mean, I guess technically I could leave this for now and start the next scene just assuming that they're working together. But I don't like that, because if I know why they're working together, I can pull on that for investigation stuff. Oh. Hang on. Might be overthinking this. So. Ash is the only created scion. Something supernatural happened to the group, heralding the sound tangle to deal with it together a little more naturally. That's what I was thinking. That is an option. Also, so Ash is the only created scion here. There are 2 born scions, 2 chosen scions, and I think Michael's an incarnation. Hang on, I'll just check. Yeah, Michael's an incarnation. But Ash is created. Ash is a created scion of Inari. Hi, Sithil. So, for those of you who don't know, a quick recap. So, there are 4 kinds of scion. You are born, so you are genetically the child of a god. You're chosen, so a god sees something in you and decides that you are fit for a divine, to build a legend. You are an incarnation of a god in that you are that god, but a facet of it, and then created that god made you. They are your demiurge, to give the actual proper usage of the word demiurge, which again is a good word. And Inari is a trickster deity, among other things. But as I said, Ash is all about helping people, helping the disadvantaged, helping those who cannot help themselves. I'm just highlighting things for something to do at this point. Sorry. So the supernatural thing could be the visitation for Ash. Especially with the vets thing. So foxes are sacred in Japanese culture to, I believe, quite a few kami, and Inari is one of them, if I'm recalling what I read correctly. So having injury to animals could be a big thing. So Inaris could appear to Ash. They could explain the whole created thing, and outright tell them to investigate with I don't want to say similar people. This is origin level. This is pre-visitation as well. So it's kind of designed to introduce the setting and the concepts of the game to people who may not have role-played before, or dealt with a story guide system or whatever. I actually plan on playing a Sign of Inari Kitsune, shapeshifting fox. Do not guess. I want to play a Kitsune character. I know they can't go all the way to God, but it would just be so cool. I love Kitsune. And Ash is Ash was the character I made on stream. All of those were done off stream. So Ash is kind of being, I guess, the focal point in a way of just this development process without really meaning to. Also, I have a thing about tricksters, and I believe Ash's knack is healer. I went with healer for Ash. So I'm throwing out words that people may not understand. So just to clarify, where's my bookmark for Amatsukami? Inari, there we go. Inari Kinutsukami of Rise, Fertility, and Foxes has the callings, so kind of like personality traits of Creator, Healer, and Liminal. I don't know why I said Trickster. That's because when I glanced at this list earlier to refresh my memory, the one below Inari has Trickster, and it's kind of just like osmosis. So there we go. So Ash's thing is Ash's knack is a healer knack. The signs are not assigned Kitsune could have sent to Godhood, but a regular 9-tail will just be on the demigod level. I think. I mean, I'm not saying you're wrong. I know that it says in the books that not all denizens can reach full god level. I mean, that's impetus to supernatural visitation. Next event sounds good. Technically, would that be their visitation? Then they'd be a hero. They wouldn't be a hero because they don't have legend, and they don't have access to purview stuff. But they would be aware of their heritage and. Ooh, the other option, because and like, hear me out on this. The other option, if we don't want to go with visitation purely as a plot device, which, you know, it's not the best. One of the other characters, Martina, you found all that to be a tiny bit confusing, to be honest. Yeah, it's because I think it's just because denizens are mythical beings in and of themselves, so they're already linked to the stories in a way, so they don't automatically get to be God. But anyway, to avoid using the visitation as a plot device, which I'm not averse to, one of the other characters, Martina, I'm just going to click her name because it's there, is a chosen of Apollo and does have a muse. She's, I think, the only one with a supernatural... Oh, no, right, yeah. Ash has a fox pet There's a 2-dot creature, so I think that's in hero, right? 1 second. Just need to find something. Birthrights, creatures, there we go. So 2-dot creature, for example, larger mundane creature could also represent weaker mythological creatures. With the idea that eventually, that when these characters are made for hero, it will be a kitsune rather than just a fox. So it is just a extremely intelligent fox, so it wouldn't really work. However, as I was saying, Martina has a muse that she is unaware of the... Oh, yeah, Denizen can also be a scion. That is explained. Right, because it has come up. Where is it? I want to clarify what I'm saying. I think it's here. Where is it? Where does it say? Oh, it might be in hero. It's like a denizen can be a scion. Don't get me wrong. There's just a limit to what they can reach. It just, because the books aren't out yet, has not been fully clarified. Here we go. It's a sidebar in Hero. Several denizens, i.e. satyrs, kitsune, whatever, can gain legend in a similar manner to scions by assuming band-term deeds in line with their particular legendaria. Unless otherwise specified, however, most can't progress to the level of demigods without some other force intervening and granting them a measure of supernatural might. They cap out at legend 4, unless upgrade paths are given in another book. So really, Neil's going to have to decide which denizens can reach demigod and god, and which can't. I mean, it sounds like a great angle in the book. Says kitsune can keep up with demigod. Like, yeah, I thought it did. Is that the origin book? All right. Anyway, so that's word for word what the book says about things like that. So if it's in hero, they can reach hero level, and if it's in demigod, they'll be able to reach demigod level, etc., etc. Sorry to be slightly unclear about what I was talking about. So anyway, this muse idea. Where did Martina's sheet go? I didn't actually open Martina's sheet. I opened the wrong one. Whoops. I didn't name the muse. Cool. So it just has a 4-dot muse. Is unaware of said muse's supernatural nature. Let's go back down to the interrogation. Sends everyone home. As the PCs leave, let's say just for now, Passage Place talks about the description of sound denizens. They're in the sidebar. I remember it. Oh, that was the sidebar I just read in Hero. The origin does all origin says, kind of at a real quick glance, is that some can. Where is it? Typically, most supernatural paths, which is what you would be playing, also receive an upgrade at the hero level and possibly above. Full-blooded kitsune are capable of reaching the heights of true demigods, while satyrs can be on the same plane as heroes, but not above. So satyrs cap out at hero, as written. That's just in the 3rd paragraph in the appendix on supernatural paths. But it does tell you how to build legend and stuff. For therianthropes and whatnot. Anyway, that's Sure thing. You've got 15 or so minutes before I wrap the stream up. Anyway, so Martina's Muse, which insert name here kind of situation. Appears, because why wouldn't she? This is a world where let's just say calls her. No. Face to face. Let's have a face to face visit. Appears claiming to be another witness. And how would we do this? Because I kind of ideally want the connections to the divine to be revealed through the investigations, not through like saying, oh, hey, by the way, gods are real, you are related to the gods. But it is also a... the theme is sudden revelation. So, let's just have a quick check what Hero says about muses. Where's Birthright's gone? There we go. Followers or guides? Guides. Where's Muse? Where are the 4 dot? Muse, inspirational goddess of the Theoi, have long been patrons of the arts and sciences for deity and mortal alike. 9 in number, each with her own specialty. They usually choose one among them to foster creativity and grant blessings for a sign who seeks their aid. When you purchase this guide, choose one skill specialty and an asset skill that relates to the particular muse your character calls upon. So that's all done with the guide stunt, etc., etc. Okay, so that's cool. Well, they have callings. Okay. So probably quicker to go to Relic and scroll up. It is. So it is about sudden revelations. But how would a muse convince a musician that they are a muse with a capital M, not a muse with a lowercase m? Especially in a crowded area. I also need a contingency for if Martina isn't being played, which is entirely possible. Oh, the contingency actually will be the Scion from the festival, to be fair. So as the PCs leave, Martina's Muse, insert name here, appears claiming to be another witness and I guess reveals her true nature. But then how would that manifest? How would that manifest in a believable, consistent way? Because it prevents the Deus... It's assuming Martina's being played, it stops the Deus Ex Machina of the railroad, in a way. Although, I mean, it's still the same kind of thing. But it is connected to one of the player characters. And that's, as I said, it's important for me to have player character connections here. Whoop. Got distracted by Silicon Path. Appears claiming to be another witness and reveals her true nature. Bye. Let's do some quick research. Not on Wikipedia. Jeez. I guess I could... I think this muse is using an assumed name. Let's treat them as an incarnation of the muse. Muses in the arts. I'm overthinking this way too much. I have a perfectly good system here in motifs and callings. Jeez, where am I looking for this? Powers, there we go. Purviews. There we go. Artistry. What have we got? Enthralling performance, heartfelt expression, or Muse's Kiss. As much as I don't like removing player agency, I feel like if I were ever going to do that, having a friend reveal that they're a supernatural creature is the perfect time to kind of subvert that. So I'm kind of leaning towards the Muse using her nature to just state the truth, and the players to be confronted with the undeniable fact that this is a being of myth. Could speak through art. Yeah, also that. I'm just kind of being driven by this. Sudden awareness, changing status quo, and revelation. Ooh. No, I like that. So, there we go. So rather than appearing and claiming to be another witness, is featured on a local radio show being broadcast in the reception area, in the lobby area. And as she sings, instills the PCs with an unshakable sense of purpose. Any PC who wishes to can attempt a, I guess, just resilience roll. Thank you, Tabletop Archives. That is an elegant way of doing it. Integrity, there we go. And integrity plus resistance attribute roll with a difficulty of, let's say, well, it's a 4-dot guide, so 4. To question this sense of purpose. Any PC who succeeds realizes that it comes from an external source, but that it is not hostile. Does that work then? If Martina is not a player character, could they make an occult something roll to discern supernatural light with imperfect disguise antagonist quality? Ooh. Yes. They may then roll. I'm generally just a favor of like the kind of attribute, so I'm thinking here finesse, power maybe. I'll just put mental. There we go. That seems to figure it out. Plus a mental attribute. That is a terrible way. I might need to rephrase this sentence with hang on, even better. Integrity with an integrity / occult. The difficulty 4. To question sense purpose. Any PC who succeeds realizes that it comes from an external source. Sorry, 1 second. Any PC who manages... I might lower the difficulty of this then. Also, remove a level... We'll say level 2 complication. Realizes the source is supernatural. I'll allow the players to draw their own conclusions about the hostile versus non-hostile nature of the source. It's featured on local radio show being broadcast in the lobby area, and as she sings, instills the PCs with an unshakable sense of purpose and a need to investigate. Again, when I go through and format this and lay it out and clean it up and edit it, whatever, for release, I will probably clarify this with like the message that she gives them, but for now this will have to do. Any PC who wishes to can attempt an integrity / occult plus resistance attribute roll with a difficulty of, let's lower this to a difficulty of 2. Because let me tell you, not many of the characters have a high integrity or occult score. To question the sense of purpose, any PC who succeeds realizes that it comes from an external source. Any PC who manages to also remove a level 2 complication realizes that the source is supernatural. Just to cut down on dice rolling and to simplify matters, so that the game doesn't drag. If Martina is not a player character, the featured musician is the scion of Alegbara from the festival. Just so that there is still that link with the characters having already met the plot hook. So I think we made good progress today. We've done a scene, which is what I was hoping for every stream. So from the festival, interrogation scene. So the recap of today's content. Story guide eyes only. This scene and the one following can happen in any order. Yeah, I'm gonna remove that. This scene follows the gang attack. Police have put out a call for witnesses to the gang attacks to come forward. Any PC who does come forward will find themselves at the wrong. Let's just get rid of that sentence entirely. This scene leads into the hunt. The police station, insert name of City Central, is a shining hub of steel, glass and bureaucracy. The police officers within are bored, inattentive and counted down amidst their shift end. The time specified for witnesses to come forth has been and gone, and a sizable crowd still waits to be seen. The crowd have taken to whispered conversations to pass the time, and the PCs may overhear take part in several. Things they may hear include: First and Grand metro stations have recently been the site of spate of pickpocketing. Anderson's Vets on 7th has had an influx of strays with electrical burns. If the PCs follow this up, however they choose to do so, the veterinary practice will tell them the animals were all rescued from the failed Acorn Grove Industrial Redevelopment Area. Chestnut Grove has been experiencing brownouts. If the PCs investigate this, they can find out that Chestnut Grove and Acorn Grove share a power grid. Depending on how they investigate and how successful they are, they might also find out that several buildings in Acorn Grove are drawing more power than they should. Whilst waiting, the PCs may also see the news via a nearby muted television. So, I guess this needs clarifying with a scrolling ticker or subtitles. Or on a daily newspaper. News items include gang attacks around the city, another bizarre murder along the river. If the PCs investigate, they can find out the Trogo's called to commercial marina 5 walk from the murder site where a number of rowing boats have been stolen. Depending on how they investigate and how successful they are, they might also find out the last boat to be stolen had a GPS tracker attached to it, which was broken shortly after the theft but indicated the thief was moving towards the city. It is up to the story guy's discretion if the fact that the river head leads to the Morrison Freight Yard is pointed out. And Ashford Renewables pledges to upgrade its existing hydroelectric equipment spread throughout the city. After the PCs have had a chance to discover any or all of these things, they're invited individually to an interview room. The officer in charge of the interviews, Roxanne Stein, starts at an attitude of -1 for each character. She will ask the following questions. Where were you when the incident happened? What did you see? What did you do? Can you remember anything odd? Do you require any support? Based on the PC's answers, the story guide is encouraged to devise follow-up questions to convey her aptitude for the job. It is up to the story guide when the following clues are revealed. In response to the "Can you remember anything odd?" question, Officer Stein will mumble, another one who didn't see the timber carrying tongs. Another officer will stick their head into the interview room and say Mrs. Rothman rang and said she forgot to mention that one of the gang members who attacked the grill next to her was wearing a Grant Green Enterprises patch on their jacket earlier. Officer Stein thanks the officer and they leave. And makes a note, comma, and they leave. Officer Stein checks something written earlier in the day, which moves her notebook slightly and reveals a business card and an evidence wallet. The business card is for Smythe's Industrial and Commercials Holdings. A dark, smudged fingerprint can be seen. After the PCs have all been interviewed, Officer Stein calls an end to the interviews for the day and sends everyone home. As the PCs leave, Martina's muse, insert name here, is featured on a local radio station being broadcast in the lobby area, and as she sings as she sings, there we go, instills the PCs with an unshakable sense of purpose and a need to investigate. Any PC who wishes to can attempt an integrity/occult plus resistant attribute roll with a difficulty of 2 to question the sense of purpose. I can talk really quickly if I need to, by the way. Any PC who succeeds realizes it comes from an external source. Any PC who manages to also remove a level 2 complication realizes that the source is supernatural. If Martina is not a player character, the featured musician is a sign of Lake Bar from the festival. Okay, so that's what we've done. Trying to go over the book's BRL, I find is being very vague. It is not absolutely stated as far as I can read. From me, it might seem an interpretation, thinking like, are you assigned first, denizen second? You're assigned with a denizen path. It assumes one of your callings or one of your paths has to justify it. Yes. It does say, however, that somewhere. It does say it somewhere. Whoops, there we go. There we go. If you choose to play a denizen, their supernatural nature is considered both a calling and a role path. If the denizen is also a scion, these callings replace one of their 3, although it may not replace the one they share with their divine parent. Or technically it says may not replace the one they share with their divine parent, but obviously that's what errata are for. And then scions come in prophets, although this is extremely rare. It's in Hero, the Legendary Creatures appendix. Anyway, I'm going to end the YouTube recording, but I'll hang around, obviously, for a little while in chat. So, general plugging, I guess, purposes. As ever, if you are curious about Onyx Path kind of news and stuff, what Kickstarters are going on, what Kickstarters are coming up, the various project status updates and things, that's the place to go. The Monday meeting notes. It's an invaluable resource. And this week goes into detail about how the project goes from Kickstarter to brick and mortar release and things like that. If you have any lingering questions, as I say, I'll be in chat for a couple of minutes longer anyway. But this show is bi-weekly. So the next time it happens will be the 4th of February. Same time. So 9 a.m. EST. Oh, yes, Bloodseer Pirate playtest. Plastic Age Plays is heavily involved with Scarred Lands stuff, and currently there are open Scarred Lands playtesty things, I think, going on. I keep checking them out because they're all OGL compatible, and I play a lot of OGL stuff. But they're always they always seem really cool and interesting, and I wish I had time to properly playtest them. But if you have the time to playtest them, definitely do so. But if you have any lingering questions, I can be found on Twitter as @ComradeBubbles. I can also be found on Twitch as @ComradeBubbles. I stream Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Just when I'm not streaming here on a Tuesday, I stream on my own channel. I do stream video game stuff, but I'm always happy to talk about role-playing and answer questions there. If you do have anything you particularly want to ask. And you should totally check out the Onyx Path Discord, because I'm there quite often, just lurking, waiting for things I can answer questions about. But it's also got good looking for group resources and things like that. Also, an origin book to say full-blooded Kitsune creatures escape at demigods, but of course, Scion Kitsune are not full-blooded in that sense, but of course there do need to be books published how to do so. Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things where the book's not out yet, so we can't even... There's no point even speculating. I guess there's not really any point asking. If they're happy with you to play a Kitsune, then just be aware that either when God comes out, you might have to change character, or your GM might have to just do some hand waving and create some stuff to explain how your Kitsune is a full God level Scion. I think that's everything, though. I've plugged myself. I've plugged the playtest with some prompting. Thank you again. And the Monday meeting notes. I'll be back in 2 weeks. This video will be exclusive for a week for subs on the Onyx Path Twitch channel. And then it will go up on my YouTube channel. Again, Comrade Bubbles. If I remember to put it up next Tuesday, it'll be next Tuesday. If not, it'll be sometime after next Tuesday. I'll be in a playlist with all of the other ones for this chronicle. But I hope you can come back again. I hope that it's mildly entertaining, and that you do come back again, because I love doing this kind of thing, and I love seeing the channel grow. I appreciate that it's not the ideal time slot for everyone, but it's the best I can do. Sorry. And there's not that much more of this chronicle adventure left. I will need to obviously be doing some stat blocks for the clash, but this whole last scene will largely be just deciding on fields and field effects and things. So maybe 3 streams, maybe 2, who knows? And then I've got a whole lot of editing ahead of me. So if you do come to these shows quite often, you do need to start thinking about, because I'm going to throw open to the community, but do need to start thinking about what game line I should write an adventure for next, as long as it's supported by the community content program of like the Sluritian Vault or Storyteller's Vault or Storypath Nexus. Excited to see it. What would you say is your weakest place from a design perspective? Yes, always checking with whoever's running the game is incredibly important. You don't want something that field effects. Oh yeah. I like environmental effects. So I don't know if you were here last time, but here are some field effects for you. So here we go. Tents being light cover against ranged attacks. Crowd counting as a barrier for movement. Where's the expendable cover? Expendable cover being like dining tables and chairs in an open air eating area. Games area, the game stalls themselves being light cover against ranged attacks from in the next corridor over. Improvised weapons having -2 complications. No special properties. And then kind of more light cover and rolling to find improvised weapons and things like that. But hopefully you'll be here to check that out. Anyway, I like doing that kind of thing. And kind of one of my greatest joys is taking something I want to happen and figuring out how it works in a game. Sometimes it does mean that some weird things get created, but that's the whole joy of the hobby as a GM. Story guide, whatever you want to call it. Anyway, so I hope you come back for that. Hope you're here for that, as I say. If you follow the Onyx Path channel, you'll get an update and you turn on updates. You'll get an email notification when they go live, which if you don't want, you can obviously turn off, but then you won't know if they're live. So up to you. Anyway, also sub if you haven't. That's me for now. Thank you for being here. Thank you for the help. Obviously, this is a community-driven show. I couldn't do it without the community, so thank you for the input and for helping me solve that extremely tricky problem of how to get all the players to do the same thing. And next time we will take these clues and we'll figure out how they lead to the finale. So hopefully you can be around for that, because if I'm still ill, that is going to be difficult, although I'm hoping to be healthy. Anyway, thank you for being here. I've really appreciated you being here. And if you are curious about the rest of the programming, stick around for the pre-roll. You get some sweet music, some great, title cards, and the schedule. See you around. Thank you again for being here.